And we are back. Steve Forbes on the line with us, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, and carrying on the family tradition of running that organization. Forbes.com, of course, a great resource. We're always on the website, Steve, getting ideas for radio programs and great articles written by a lot of wonderful contributors. So we're following that closely. I'm glad to have you back to talk to us about the Fed. Now, a lot of people, they're much more familiar with maybe healthcare and taxes, of course, but the Federal Reserve is kind of this thing that sits out there that, quite candidly, most people don't know what it is and don't know what it does and how it affects our everyday lives.
Well, that's right, and that's why the Fed, the Federal Reserve System, as they call it, our so-called central bank, has amassed such power and is able to do things that end up doing immense harm to the economy, and no one calls them to account on it. Most people in Congress don't understand it. Economists like you to believe that it's beyond your understanding. But what the Fed is trying to do is control our economy by manipulating interest rates, by trying to manipulate the money supply. And they tried that in the Soviet Union. And so today the Federal Reserve suppresses interest rates. That sounds great. Oh, I get free money.
Right.
But it's like the old Soviet Union where the saying was the health care is free, but you can't get any.
Right.
By deforming the money markets, the credit markets, the banking system, big companies have no problem getting money. Government has no problem. But small and new businesses suffer. They're the job creators. Just to give you one statistic, in the last 5 years through 2014, credit to government grew 37%, credit to corporations 32%, credit to small businesses and households only 6%.
Wow.
And in the so-called recovery, that is a disaster, which is one reason why the labor market, yes, it's had some improvement since then, but overall it's in the worst shape it's been in the 40 years. People being underemployed or can't get the job they should have.
Well, I'm not hearing a lot of reports about tons of new businesses being started, let alone small business owners. And, we hear about the unemployment rate and how it's, and of course, nobody even talks about the participation rate, but the unemployment rate and a lot of those a couple 100,000 jobs or whatever it is that's added in a given month, a lot of them are at the very low end. They're not necessarily high income kind of jobs, and it's certainly
a lot of them are part-time jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
So we're not seeing necessarily we're not falling worse, but we're certainly not seeing a robust recovery. And so what are some of your thoughts? We've got a couple minutes left here, Steve, with you. What are some of your thoughts for what we can do or what should be done about the Fed to have it be really, better for everyday Americans?
Well, one, have the Fed start running down, as they call it, their bloated portfolio. The Fed has bought by money they've created out of thin air. They've, in effect, extracted $3.5 trillion of assets, bonds, from our economy. They should, on those bonds, make sure the Fed should not reinvest that money, but let it go back in the banking system and be lent to people who are going to make productive use of it. They should stop trying to manipulate interest rates, trying to run the economy. And ultimately, I think we're going to go to something we did for 180 years in this country, from the time of George Washington, and that is a gold standard. Gold is like a ruler. Just make sure that the dollar has a steady value. When you see the price of gold change, that's not the intrinsic value of gold changing. That is the value of the dollar changing.
Right.
And we had a gold standard for 180 years. We had much higher growth rates than we've had since. And it worked for us. It's worked in other countries that's tried it for 4,000 years. So let's take it out of the hands of the politicians and have a dollar with a stable value, just like you have 60 minutes in an hour.
Right.
You don't float the number of minutes in a clock each day. 30 minutes one day in an hour, 50 minutes the next, 60 the day after, 20 the day after that. Life would be chaotic. Just imagine baking a cake. You had a floating clock. It says bake the batter 30 minutes. You have to figure those inflation-adjusted minutes, are those nominal minutes, are they Florida minutes, Mexican minutes? It'd be chaotic. That's what they've done to the economy, and then people wonder why we're stuck in second gear.
Yeah, and you can't do quantitative easing or create $4 trillion if you're on a gold standard.
No. It's like having 12 inches in a foot,
right,
or 16 ounces in a pound. And when you buy a pound of cheese or a gallon size doesn't change each day. But dollar's value should not change each day.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll definitely have to have people read the book because there's lots more here we can't get to on a radio interview. But Steve Forbes, ladies and gentlemen, has been our guest, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media. And the latest book out from Steve is Reviving America, How Repealing Obamacare, Replacing the Tax Code, and Reforming the Fed Will Restore Hope and Prosperity. And I pray that that's true, Steve, and we'll definitely look for the book and all the press that we'll receive, and really, really appreciate you being on the program with us today.
And enjoyed it, David. Thank you. Thank you very much.